a second. Milky, is that you?
Masked Swan? What are you doing here?
Oh God. Okay. I think we're in some kind of video. I'm not quite sure. Might need help.
You're not going to believe this, but I think there are people looking at us.
Okay, yeah, seems so. All right, they're looking kind of confused. You try saying something cool, okay?
I got just the thing. Greeting, Earthlings.
Okay, no. The other side next time. Try that again. Also,
okay.
Maybe not so cliche. We're all Earthlings here, mate. Come on, all right?
Okay, I got it this time.
Okay,
without a doubt.
All right, I trust you.
Come 1v1 my Yasuo, you filthy scrubs.
This guy.
No, don't go. Come on, we had like a whole show planned. I was just joking. Good evening and welcome to the eLECtric Recap, the show where we talk about everything LEC related.
I'm Masked Swan and I'm your resident analyst, and I occasionally tell the somewhat funny joke, I think.
And I'm MilkyCereal and I laugh at Masked Swan's jokes. That was a good one.
That wasn't a joke, Milky.
I'm sorry, I just had to. We all love your work.
No, anyway, going on with the show today, we're going to be looking at the roster changes that occurred during the off-season.
And looking ahead to the opening 3 days of games. Let's kick things off with our LEC 2020 champions, G2 Esports. G2 Esports remains largely unchanged. Wanda is still in the top lane with Jankos in the jungle. Caps still in the mid lane as Reckless, the Swedish superstar from Fnatic, comes in to replace Perks, and he'll be partnered up by, of course, MilkyCereal in the bottom lane. For Vitality, they're going to be hoping that new boy Sigenda can make the difference and carry them higher up at the table. Skeens is still in the jungle with the Militza in the mid lane as Comp and Labrov make the bottom part of the map. For SK Gaming, their top laner, Genax, is the only remaining player from the 2020 roster, with Tinks in the jungle, Blue in the mid lane, and Hezu and Treats in the bottom lane. For Rogue, Trimby is their only change in the support role. Odoamne will be atop with Inspired in the jungle, Larson in the mid lane, and of course Hun Sam in the bot, paired by the aforementioned Trimby. For Misfits Gaming, it's a large roster and another 7-man team. Aggressivu and Hirit both joining as top laners. Razork in the jungle, Vithio in the mid lane, and Kobe and Denik making up the bottom part of the map. We then take a look at Mad Lions, who have Armut joining in, Elyoya in the jungle to replace Shadow. Humanoid still in the mid lane with Kazi and Kai'Sa in the bottom side of the map. For Fnatic, and arguably the biggest challenges for G2 Esports this season, but more on that later. It's still a Whippo in the top lane, Selfmade in the jungle, Niski flying in from Cloud9. He's in the mid lane, Upset in the ADC role, and Hylissang in the support role. For Schalke, Broken Blade in the top lane, and it is Godsend Gilius in the jungle, Abadage in the mid lane, Neon and Limit will be the Schalke bottom lane. For Excel, Kreiser is in the top lane, Dan in the jungle, Chekalad in the mid lane, Patrick and Torre are still your bottom laners for Excel. And Astralis, the rebrand from Origin, they have White Knight coming in the top lane, Zenzara in the jungle, Nuke Duck in the mid lane with Jeskla, and the ex-G2 support substitute, a Promise Q, completing the lineup. Now, joining myself and Masked Swan on the show to discuss everything LEC related is a caster. Wait, what?
What? Who's coming on? This wasn't part of the plan, Milky. This is a new thing. I wasn't expecting anybody. I thought I was the star of the show.
You are, Masked Swan, but like stars, there are many in the sky. So, joining us is a League of Legends coach and a far superior color caster as well, Temporal.
I'm not sure about superior color casting, but I'll take it. We'll
Just
run
take
with
it
that
for the
one.
dig.
We'll run with that one.
Right, so we just
Welcome.
went through, the rosters for each of the teams heading into spring at 2021. And first off was G2 Esports. That one change coming in, but that one change that has, hit the top, all of the headlines during winter, which is Reckless moving from Fnatic over to G2. Temporal, what are your thoughts on it?
If we don't win Worlds now, this roster will likely not win Worlds in its current iteration, and we're gonna have to wait another 10 years for the Year of the Duck. That's the outcome. If this doesn't win Worlds in a year when Korea is slightly reforming itself and starting to build on another dynasty that might or might not have Faker at its core, when China is getting more and more unstable and starting to shake itself down a bit, if Europe doesn't win now, it's going to be really, really questionable that we have a better chance soon.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time for G2 to really throw everything at it. They've now got an ADC main in the bot lane, which they haven't had for 3 years since Caps joined. They haven't had
top 4 team in the world. No way
Yep.
to carry for 3 years. Yep.
And now
Sounds
they've got
about right.
Reckless, which in my eyes makes sense because he's going to integrate into the team, I actually think, really well. I know that's an interesting topic to talk about, but honestly, Reckless will go to work and he wants to win. We know he's got the mental game to at least come into this team and go, I want to win. He said that on Fnatic. Yeah, that didn't go so well, but I mean, he's with a better roster and he's with Caps again, and that's familiarity before.
Was also arguably a top 4 team, definitely a top 6 team in the world. So it's not like he's gone from oh gosh, there's a comparison here. It's not like he's gone from a top 8 team to a top 2 and he's suddenly challenging. And he's turned down more money at Fnatic to be on this G2 roster. So this is Reckless's time to take home a trophy.
Something I'd like to bring up for you two is G2 always have this kind of air about them of, is it going to be, G2 on form or is it going to be G2 inting? And with Reckless now at the helm, or I say at the helm, but as part of this unit, are G2 going to be storming out of the gates from the get-go, Masked Swan?
I honestly think they're actually going to be the best team week 1 coming into the LEC. I would be actually shocked if they didn't hit the ground running. This is 4 members of the team that have played together before. And then we're just adding in Reckless, who is outright maybe number 1, number 2 in a lot of weeks. Best bot laner. So if they don't perform for me, this is a bad start for them. And I'm not expecting this from them, if you ask me.
So I don't want to leak where we're going in the future. I think there is a chance this is not the hottest roster on the ground week 1, but come middle of summer, this will start to, regardless of schedule strength, will start to. I'm going to go the other way. I think it's going to be in summer, we're going to start to see some momentum, and it's going to be another maybe 2 losses have snuck in there throughout the summer split, and then they're just going to win the whole thing. We're going to ramp it up, go through that way. I think this roster knows they don't need to sweat. We've taken a minus 10% chaos. We're not going to have Perks and Caps' wild ride. We're going to have a bit more controlled G2. And as long as they maintain their other dynamics, sans that characteristic, that chaos that we've seen from them, that being a bit jovial, being a little unpredictable, even with such a strong style, I think it's important that they hold those characteristics together while they cut back on something that has maybe seen them not do so well in certain situations.
Now, from G2, the team that was at the top of the LEC last season, to one of the teams that was at the bottom of the standings, Vitality. They're coming into 2021 with just one change. But I guess we probably shouldn't let that one changer fool any of us, because Sigenda has looked absolutely awesome in EU Masters.
They're the number 1 rookie, honestly, from the Ego Rogue team coming into the LEC. 4 out of the 5 members are coming into the LEC. 3 of them are making their rookie debut. 1 of them had played for 2 or 3. I think it's the jungler had played very briefly in the LEC. And the other player, the AD carry from that Ego Rogue roster, is now on Misfits Academy roster, primed to eventually come into the LEC next year, assuming everything works out. honestly, their best player coming into Vitality should actually breathe new life. If they don't, honestly, if you're getting the hottest rookie in the LEC and in Europe, really, not performing up to expectations, there's something vitally wrong with Vitality, not just from a player point of view, in my opinion.
I'm going to elaborate on your not player point of view in a minute. You've spoken about his agenda. I have not much more to add. Promising in a world where EU top lanes maybe aren't as dominant as we've seen them in the past, where we used to clash with these huge names from Korea and at the time North America. I'm thinking like 2012 through 2016 era. We don't have that anymore. We choose not to opt into those things in our limited international engagements. I want to talk about Comp and Lebrov. Comp was a pretty strong showing last year. I was pretty excited about him before 2020 spring, and I think he's still got more to show on this European stage. I sort of rated him similar to Kazi, who we've seen pop off and be a critical part of this Mad Lions roster. Comp is a similar player. Vitality were known to have management issues last year. I don't think this is appropriate for him. And I don't have full information. But let's say it is fair to assume that this roster was not able to just dive into the game and be at 100%. I would like to see this roster at 100%. I think Militia is very consistent and very good. I think he can upset people and start to play his own way. And if we see that evolve through, we suddenly have 3 lanes we're excited about, a jungler who we know can perform on the European stage, and a Vitality I would not be surprised to be going middle of the pack, definitely going to playoffs. I just want to see this split. That is a very possible future. If they have not resolved their issues, expect to see. I don't know if those management issues are even affecting the players, but we're not going to see Cabo Card not having a great time in the top lane. I don't know if he's twilighting his career. I don't know what happened there, but he wasn't happy. That's not a this player isn't good. We've seen Cabo Card do incredible things on the European stage, but it wasn't working out that time. And I don't have the information as to why, and it wasn't enough to do things with the team, and clearly things weren't happy. With changing these small units, I want to see that focus come back. I think that was a key part of a successful Vitality in previous years.
Now, while Vitality have only had 1 change to their roster in Temporal, you think they will be looking to make that playoff run or making it to playoffs in spring 2021. We then go to SK Gaming, and they're on the other side of the spectrum when it comes to roster changes. Only 1 member remaining the same, and that is a Genax. And we've seen before, complete roster changes. Sometimes it can go terribly badly, sometimes it can go well. Temporal, where do you think this new SK Gaming roster sits?
I hope SK Gaming didn't pay as much for this roster as they did for last year's. I don't have much information, but you've dropped arguably top 2 AD carry in Europe. You've sent home your veteran career jungler who had shot calling experience in Europe. Reasons unknown. Maybe Trick didn't want to play anymore, but if he wanted to play, why on earth didn't Trick get hired? Maybe something happened last, but I've got no idea. But we've lost a lot of experience, a lot of star player potential for Treats, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. I don't know if we're going to see him explode out because we are pretty saturated for supports here in Europe. Jezu, I haven't seen a lot of Jezu. Maybe Swan can help me out there. Zazie out for Blue. Not making TCL playoffs isn't great, but I haven't watched those games. Maybe Blue is a bit stuck because he's not there anymore. I think Genax will do fine, but we're seeing new. We just spoke about a new EU top laner, and there's plenty of them in EU Masters. So if we're going to rebuild, I don't know if Genax is really the build around or how stable that's going to be. It's gonna be interesting to see how SK Gaming come out, because if they've hyperbolic time chambered, as lockdown does allow lots of people to do, especially in the esports world where gigs weren't that frequent anyway, and now they're very infrequent. Maybe we'll see some hyperbolic time chamber action and they'll come out screaming like Goku. Who knows? Big question mark. And I'm not super excited, seeing as we've lost a lot of what I was excited about last year.
Yeah, I mean, the SK roster, Blue coming in, that's a really interesting thing. They had a disappointing split on their previous team they are from Turkey. Originally, they were actually just one of the best players in Turkey. They had a lot of wins. They won the TCL in winter. They had won the academy stuff. They had been on premier teams over in Turkey. They had a huge roster change up in summer. Mental boomed pretty badly, actually. And that wasn't Blue's fault fully. He's a part of it. He's obviously a part of the equation, but you can't really blame them, especially when you're playing half of the games, because you're splitting it between Midkid, who was the fellow mid laner who was also learning from Blue, who had more experience. Blue coming in, he's been around for 3 years. This is his debut really in a major region. Obviously not a debut as a player, because he would have done that over in Turkey, but I'm honestly not super sure. Me and Milky have talked off camera about them, and he brought up the point, historically Turkish players have struggled in EU, so I think that's a very fair point. Their jungler as well, Tinks, they're making their debut actually in a major region coming into EU. They've been a grinder since 2016. Like this is their time to make a point. They have played it. They've been a part of some great rosters in the past. LDLC is a big notable one from the amateur league. He was a part of Origin, but as a substitute way back when in 2017. There's a chance. I'm actually not super sure of this whole roster, and unlike while we were super optimistic about Vitality, I'm gonna be a bit more pessimistic about this SK roster, purely because, like you said, Temporal, they had Crowny, they had Crown Shot, and now he's going to Korea to chill out with LS. It's blowing my mind.
Going to Korea to chill out with LS is a great career move.
True.
Think if you're not going to Worlds, go to Korea and chill out with LS. Just do it. You will come
great
back.
Career move. I'm going to cut us off.
I want to add one thing, because we've both been quite pessimistic about SK, and I think in a year where EU is like shifting around and we've seen consolidation into one super team potentially, we'll see how that goes this split. You mentioned Tinks. I sort of want to see we mentioned they've lost all of their leadership as well. They're veterans. These are newer players, some of which have been around T2 for a while, some of which have been over in America for a bit. If treats Tinks and Blue sort of get this dynamic going where Blue's not unhappy that he's on a Fenerbahce that maybe isn't playing him every week and isn't going where Fenerbahce wants to go, if Treats is coming in from that hypothetical time chamber we both mentioned, and if Tinks is showing up, there is potential for this to be a top 4 team. I think their range is probably 3rd to last, and we won't know where. It's a very wide roster, and our pessimism shouldn't be seen as doom.
And on that, I'm going to move us on to Rogue, because I am aware that we are starting to run a little bit short of time. So I know, Masked Swan, you were very excited about Aga Rogue. One of their players has made their way on to the Rogue roster, Trimby coming in. And this is the team that was atop of the standings heading into playoffs in LEC 2020 summer. What do you think of Trimby? What do you think of the new Rogue lineup?
So Rogue got 2 steps forward, honestly, in my opinion. I think that Timby over Vander is actually 2 steps forward. It's an upgrade, and it's great. It's a rookie who's going to come in. There's a lot of things they can learn from this Rogue roster, who, let's be real, coming in last split were basically a 4-5-man complete rookie team, blew up. There's a lot, management's already understanding how to foster young talent. Han Summer is going to be a great pairing. I'm really looking forward to it. The problem is, I think they might have gone 1 step back, maybe 2 steps back, and found their same spot with Odawamne, who had some really glorious moments, but that wasn't every game. And there is a reason why a god was risen from that Schalke lineup, because they needed it more than anything else. I'm excited to see this Rogue lineup. I think they could definitely be a top 4 team. They could also be a top 6 team. And I'm like looking at their playoffs opportunities. I'm like, they might have to run the gauntlet, and it might be difficult for them. The talent is there. I'm just a little bit... hopefully they can prove me wrong. I want to be proven wrong by this team, by the way.
There is doubt, and I think it's a good way you frame it as a question in that way. You've seen a lot more of Trimby than me, so I'm going to trust your confidence in him. But losing Vander, again, is veteran status for a reason. Maybe Vander has moved on to other things. I haven't actually double-checked which roster he's on, if any. But there's a reason he's been around for so long. Even if he is not the hottest and quickest, he's quite often the smartest. And I think that showed during Rogue's 2020 run. They cleaned up the middle of the table. quite convincingly, even if they didn't take the top teams to task. Losing Finn is a blow. I think Odo Omne, if he's comfortable, will retain some of that star power. So we're not looking at such a large question mark as we did on SK.
And
Vander
you mentioned
moved. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, you mentioned how Vander was, a form of that stability for Rogue, and I wanted to move on to Misfits now because that's where Vander is right now.
Of course he is.
Substitute side by side with Denick, and Misfits 8th in regular season in summer 2021. They needed some change, and they've had a huge change. It's only Razork and Kobe who are still on the team from that 2020 lineup. And Temporal, what are your thoughts on their new roster?
So correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Misfits started 2020 strong and then had a big wobble and then a big dip and then a bit of stabilization, but the dip was a chasm, let's be frank.
It was always a downward trajectory, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I'm hoping they hit the ground running. I think Kobe is still probably on top of his game. His solo queue looks pretty strong. Vetheo from LDLC I'm familiar with, and I am excited to see. I am unfortunately not the biggest Forbidden fan. Should he be in LEC? Maybe. He seems to need coaching staff who are more authoritarian, more discipline-based, because from his time in America and just a few things that sort of let slip in streams and solo content that he's put out, you just got to wonder if he's been paying full attention. Remember that Forbidden came in the same time as players like Power of Evil, and the gap is huge now. But back then, it was that tight European mid lane dynamic. Vander, I'm happy to see. Maybe he's going to take more of a substitute coach role, as Denick probably is commanding most of these games. What else do you think about this roster, Swan?
I actually think this is a really nice way for Misfits to figure out what's going to work. We've got the only Korean player in the whole of the LEC in Hitrit. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a great way for Misfits. They've identified the best 2 players to build. Well, actually, arguably best 3 players on the Misfits roster to kind of build around. 2 of them, obviously, remaining from the previous lineup of Razork and Kobe. I think they're the best 2 players to build around from the 2020. When we saw cracks exposed from Mystics Gaming, it was really from their roles, respectively. And then going double support, double top. Let's figure out what we need to make work. Vander, as you already mentioned when we were talking about Rogue, tried and true there. Definitely a huge thing. I think you're bang on. They will have hopefully Vander more as kind of a coach substitute support if and when needed for maybe the big game moments, but they want to very much have Denick as the main support. And I think Aggressivo and Hirain, they can figure it out between themselves. I don't know who's the better player. I don't know enough about them to make an educated guess, but I think it's nice to actually flex it. You have this opportunity in the LEC to play larger rosters, and it's actually nice to see teams actually go, let's try it out. The spring splits when we should do this. We're not like NA. We're not having the super long series. Sorry, MilkyCereal, for bringing up NA. But we're having longer series, so it makes sense. Try things out in spring. You can still do that, and then come summer, if you've figured out your 5, that's when you submit it. That's when you lock it in and you fully commit to it.
You can do. I think they maybe don't even need to if Aggressivo and Hitrit are sort of comfortable with their positions on the roster. And then if they wish to have that 100% starting spot, then maybe fight for it next year or position around another mid-tier European roster. I'm excited to see how this bot lane plays out, especially.
Now, one of the teams that I'm most excited to talk about is Mad Lions. I mean, they were, it was a magical kind of fairy tale story in 2020, from coming up into the LEC, pretty much a brand new roster with the exception of the likes of Arome and a Humanoid. Almost made it into Worlds. They made it into the Worlds of Plains, but they couldn't get any further. 2 changes. Coming in from Supermassive, played against Mad Lions in the Worlds of Play-ins, and Elyoya replacing Shadow, who didn't have the best of performances in those play-ins. Now, I want to go to you, Temporal, first, because with Shadow, I feel that he had a decent, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel that he had a decent summer and spring split. Do you think this is Mad Lions jumping the gun off one bad performance in Worlds?
I don't know where Shadow went at Worlds, and I don't know where he went afterwards. For whatever reason, he's not here, so we can't talk about it too much, I guess. Maybe that's something for Shadow to sort of share on social media in the future. If he chooses to get back into it. Well, if he chooses to and is then accepted back into another roster. Eloya, I have enough information on, and I am happy to see him here. It's going to be a great time. I'm interested to see how with the jungle changes, he maybe adapts faster than LEC junglers we know and love already. Armut, I am a great fan of. I think one of the Turkish players to definitely show up and then like make this transition to a bigger region. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he does in strong lane versus strong lane in a meta flip in a couple of months' time. Because I think what we're enjoying now, this renaissance of bot lane, can only go on for so long. There's only so many times players and designers can play against like this Kaiser that will always get there after 30 minutes. The Ophelia is just spinning around. And I think we may be going to see a top strong meta in a few months. That's a long prediction. But in the short prediction, Kazi and Kaiser should still be showing up. Their picks are still strong, and they're still in the same position. I think it's going to be on other people to challenge them where they've already been established.
I mean, for me, very quickly, I think Armut could definitely perform up to expectations. He is a 2-time, maybe 3-time world's contender. He's been playing in the playing stage for a while. He's got the experience. He knows how to do it. He's played with completely different rosters. He played with Closer in the first one, who's now of 100 Thieves, and then he played with the veteran man himself, who is a free agent, may I add, Cacao. How is Cacao a free agent unless he just doesn't want to play League, by the way? This man's just a god. Just whatever. We've seen the rest of his team that were very much, he can play with a lot of different players, very different play styles. I'm actually very optimistic. Maybe in history, he will go down as one of the best Turkish top laners, which will actually be a pretty big sentiment for him because he's been to Worlds more than a lot of other Turkish players. So definitely a good bit of respect to them. I'll be honest, Ayoya, I actually know very little about. He has been part of Movie Star Academy and Riders, who I'm aware of. They're low down, but I honestly don't know enough about them. They're over in the Spanish league, which I don't know a huge amount enough about, so I can't say that. I am excited. They have got some results. If you just look at a result-based orientation, which you shouldn't, ladies and gentlemen, you shouldn't. But if you want to do results-based orientation, they seem like a solid player. They have European Masters experience. Optimistic. We should be very optimistic for this roster, I think.
To counter optimism, is Humanoid a hole?
Ooh. I mean, Humanoid did have a good summer split. Everyone was questioning him in spring split, I feel, and he showed up in summer. That's my sentiment. Okay, before we go on to our final 4 teams, this is the part of the show where we take a look at our viewer-submitted clips. And if any viewers want to submit their clips, they can get in touch with myself or Masked Swan on Twitter. So let's take a look at that first clip that was submitted in. And I believe this is a cheeky little fight around Baron. So Leona goes in, drops a solo wave on 2. Ivan's showing up, and there's a Blitzcrank coming as well. You can see the Yone coming in from the northern side of the map. But just right as when things get interesting, that's all unbound, and Yone has to say bye-bye. And then blue side, they just seem to just clean absolutely everything up now with the numbers advantage. And then Riven, maybe a little bit late to the party or just arriving, shows up and gets beaten up a little bit as blue side just clean everything away.
Whose perspective are we basing this on?
The Leonas.
The Leona. Okay, Swan, do you want to go first?
Sure. So you're engaging here as the Leona, and you're like already identifying that this is going to be a numbers disadvantage because your Riven doesn't have TP and she's on the opposite side of the map. So you're just going to always be doing this 4v5. You don't have full perfect vision of the enemy team. So the Caitlyn, when she does enter this in, is going to be able to meet the fight and actually just have a numbers advantage. Also, you were going at this without any of the major carries. The Lucian came in pretty late, and the Yone was nowhere near to be seen. Also, your Yone is 1 in 6 going into this, so he's not really going to be a carry. Your Olaf, the Olaf isn't going to be able to help you, especially when you have another numbers disadvantage. And when he does pop the ult, it's not going to be good enough. Pick your times to engage better would be my tip to the Leona.
Temporal?
So this is a prime example of something we'd call a coin flip. In the Leona here understands there is a Blitzcrank on the enemy team. If you take a snap engage, which is Leona's bag, that is all her bag, against a Blitzcrank team that isn't set up in a more thoughtful way, you're generally going to win. This is contradictory to a Mordekaiser, who acts as pseudo control mage. He's essentially Malzahar but a bruiser, and will remove one member of your team who currently don't hold any QSSs to negate this fact. And it doesn't look like anyone can 1v1 him as well. He's died a lot, but the man's holding a lot of gold. You take the snap engage. Your Yone is further away than the Anivia. Anivia is a control mage. If you play in that single pocket you engage to, your engage is not as effective against the Olaf, and then the Anivia will make it less effective as your assassin is not there. And if you take a screenshot of this, when Leona pushes those buttons, because I can't see any pings, I can't see any communication, I don't know if this is fives, only the Ivan is behind you and the Lucian finishes the wave. Means you're always at a numbers disadvantage, even if the Riven had teleport. And that just means you need to think this one through a little bit. When playing support, especially in solo queue, just keep hitting that tab button. Just keep seeing. Just make sure you've got your opponent's timers. If not in chat, which is optimal, have it in your head. I do believe chat has been fixed, so you can once again control ACV those and just try and know everything. And then your actions don't have to be sort of super big brain. Consistently good actions is a way to inspire confidence in the teammates in the early stages of the game. And when everyone's having fun in solo queue and you're doing all the right things, that's when your win rate starts to balloon out of control until you settle at a new average.
Yeah. So kind of watch for those engages, or check how many members you have to go in, and make sure you're not kind of getting controlled out. So our next clip was submitted from Summoner Atomic Betty, who is playing Janna, and shows up as a Darius appears. A rather unwelcome sight, I think, no matter whether a Darius is fed or not. And they all seem to be having fun, taking it in turns to hit the Darius, and then slowly but surely, the entire red team comes up, and then everything goes, well, badly. Twitch dies, and Janna, on the run, eventually gets sniped down and taken down. So, Temporal, I'll start with you. What do you think the Janna could have done better here?
I love bullying Darius, so plus marks to me. Your team kites around him fantastically. The Twitch is super committing here. Your agency is limited in the support role. I don't know if we can telestrate this, so we're just going to keep talking as if we're at the start, just before you ulti there. 3 members of the enemy team show up. That's a lot of fog of war. I can see there's a lot of fog of war on the map, so you've got to be watching those side lanes. It takes 25 seconds from the base to the middle of the map, and you can count that when you see a back timer. It's going to be hard to have these different ones firing in your head, so you can maybe use chat with timestamps. You don't have to count out loud to be good at League of Legends. Your Twitch is hyper committed. He's dead already here. As he kites right, that's it. There is not even a way he can get out with flash. If he flashes that wall, he's going to be followed. Too many members of the enemy team. Seraphine's too good at move speed. And then you've got Jhin with potential traps in your backline. The micro is really nice. Just need to think about where we're going. Janna is a thinking champion. These enchanters aren't mechanically intensive. It's always great to hit those like 0.1 second shields and like mess with people. The main strength of enchanters is doing incredible amounts of utility-based things and avoiding fights that are close. If you're fighting and it's close and your Lulu just like plays through and kills everyone, that's great. Did that fight need to happen? Did the Lulu protect the carry perfectly? Did the Janna displace things? You made the Jax engage not great, which is fine, but could we do that in a better team fight where it matters more?
And Masked Swan, your thoughts on this play?
I mean, I'll be honest, I think Temporal covered it perfectly. I think my only thing would be probably more communication with the pings would be a big thing. We saw the Yasuo die in the enemy jungle, and 2 of your teammates are running away. We should keep pinging them and remind them that they need to keep leaving. There's still a good chance that one of them perishes to the Darius, and that just happens. But you might have been able to maybe escape with Shen here. Or maybe you wouldn't have died necessarily. And you had a 0-0-13 record at this point. We didn't need to tarnish that. It's just a tiny thing. Just a tiny thing. But hey ho, at the end of the day, you did your
Masked Swan,
best.
what happened to what you said at the start of the show where stats don't just look at stats at a face value? I distinctly remember something along those lines.
Yeah, but don't ruin your KDA.
I'm going to chime in as well. Where's the Soul Stealer? You're clearly you're KDAing out of your mind, and that's fine on Janna. It's a fantastic way to play Janna. As long as you're then you're continuing to add things to the map. You're standing right behind your teammates. You're not, wandering around the jungle like, help me guys, ward time. Why is no one coming? And then doing it on your own anyway. So feel free to get a bit extra. Soul Stealer is efficient for a reason.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'm getting from this is communicate more via pings, and maybe if a certain member on your team is a lost cause, don't.
When we say communicate with pings, not everything's going to go great when you start pinging people. You have to sort of have this moderation, and then if you've done all you can, do no more, and work on other controllable variables. This one might have been out of your hands, no matter what.
Perfect.
Right. Thank you for that, Masked Swan and Temporal. And again, to all of our viewers, if you do want to submit a clip, you can get in contact with myself or Masked Swan. Our Twitter's down below. Don't worry, we're very friendly. We won't bite. Masked Swan, he might bite. I can't confirm on that. If he bites, let me know, and I'll bite back at you. Not Masked Swan. I don't know. And anyway, going back to rosters, I saved the big one for the next, which is Fnatic. And every time we talk about LEC, it's Fnatic, it's G2. It's been that way for the last few years. And Fnatic, they've got those two changes coming in. They brought Upset in to replace Reckless, who has gone over to their rivals in G2, and Nisqy coming in from Cloud9. Temporal, what are your thoughts on these two changes? Do you think this is enough to match G2 and take them to that LEC spring playoff finals?
In terms of individual player caliber, no. In terms of winning the game against them, yeah, probably. Nisqy is a fantastic side grade. The man's a complete sponge. Doesn't matter if you put him up against Faker, Nisqy will still get the same CS number and will still be in competition, even if he's not always steaming ahead. Upset, on the other hand, I am very excited to see player. I was excited to see him get on Schalke all those years ago. I don't think he's had a chance to take off. I think he's still one of these fantastic AD carries, and I still think we have yet to see his best on the stage. Hillazang's still the same player. I expect to see less coin flips, less frustration. Please, Hilly, for the love of God. And I think Bwipo is the sort of player that will shine again in a new season and plays not only what he enjoys, but he makes what he is good at enjoyable and starts this cycle where he will play new things. He'll play different things. We won't have seen all of them. A lot of them stay hidden. And I'm really looking forward to maybe seeing some spice. I think Fnatic is going to be the most League of Legends-y team in a way that we're not thinking about how good the players are. We're just going to see some crispy rotations, and they're going to inspire a different fan base amongst appreciation at home.
So next up then is Schalke. Now, Schalke, I mean, we all know that fairy tale comeback. They got so close to making it into Worlds. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. They've still got Gilius in their lineup, which it has to be a good thing. And their only changes, I should say, Broken Blade coming in for Odawamne, Limit coming in for Dreams. We now have two TSM players in the LEC. And Masked Swan, what do you think of this?
Did someone say TSM? Oh yeah, Broken Blade, go! Okay, so I'm super high on this, because by the way, I actually thought Broken Blade got a lot of flack, and he didn't deserve it. Yes, you can at me on Twitter. I will probably not respond to you.
Can I interject? A TSM player in recent era who wasn't their mid laner getting flack? I don't believe you. I think this is fake news.
But Broken Blade with Gilius, I honestly think this is a match made in heaven. Abadage actually showed to really start performing towards the mid to end of the season. I mean, they figured out a few things. Limit coming in, I don't know where I really fall on Limit, because he was with, honestly, one of the best AD carries in the LEC, and now he's not with them. I don't know if they're going to be a match made in heaven. I'm interested to see that, but I think the rest of this Schalke team, we could definitely see Schalke maybe make a deep run at playoffs again, and who knows, there could be Worlds in the thing. There's a long way till we get there, and this team has the potential, but there's a lot of questions, I think, around them. And honestly, how does this team gel? Because this team is kind of different now with those two player changes.
I think you're right. I think this is a shoe-in for the 3rd and 4th slots, providing Gilius doesn't explode again, as we've seen previously. But, you know, 3rd time's the charm, and this is the 3rd major attempt for Gilius in the LEC. The 2nd one went fantastically last year, so you know what? Let's keep going. I'm happy to see where we go with this. We're not going to go too far and regret it. One way or another. I think you're right. This is going to be Limit's litmus test year. Maybe the crown shot limit lane was Limit whispering crown shots here. Like, take this CS. Go right here. Go left. Move up. Move down. Little micro. I'm going to control this human being. And if so, then I expect Neon to be a fantastic conduit for it. And I'm excited to see whether it was all crown shot, as it appeared to be. They definitely had that stylized K last year, or whether Limit and Neon can like push that even brighter.
I'm not going to lie, Temporal. That sounds kind of like what I say in my head when I play solo queue, just that my ADC can't hear that.
We just get these 5 keyboards out and 1 on each limb, and I'll play for all of you.
That's like that guy. I think he made it to High Diamond just playing Ezreal Yumi by himself. He just pressed a button, put Yumi on his Ezreal, and away he went. Now, moving on to Excel. Cry's still in the top lane. Patrick and Torre still that bottom lane, but 2 changes coming in. Jungle, mid lane. Dan replacing Cadril, and Chekalad replacing Special from Masked Swan's favorite EU Masters team, Ago Rogue. Masked Swan, I'll let you take this one away.
I mean, honestly, this is just incredible to see. Dan has been a player that has been grinding out the academy system for so long. He's been playing alongside Magic Felix and was a part of a reason, in my opinion, why Magic Felix was just such a good player for so long. He was enabled through his jungler. Dan is going to be such a big impact for XL, and I don't want to say this because Cadrill's British, but maybe upgrade? Maybe. We'll have to see, honestly, because this is a big debut for Dan, and nerves might get to them. Chex Lord coming in for Ego Rogue. This is just amazing. I'm so excited to see them play. They have a huge champion pool, by the way. They show that in the amateur scene. They are going to be able to bring this to the LEC. I believe they've also once played in the LEC. I might be incorrect about that, but there is just so much talent coming from this XL lineup. I think their bot lane of XL was really good. And hey, they can only go up really because they did have 7th place in the regular season last split. So I honestly think this could be a top 6 team.
I hope they get players. I think XL have done a great job story building. They've done a great job furthering their franchise. And I'm more interested to see the brand almost than the players, but we shouldn't let that take away from the players because of the fantastic brand building. It's like still very close. Cries was very inspiring last year. Really only played carries, but it still worked for the most part. Definitely hit the ground running early in the season. Maybe we'll see that again. You highlighted the difference between Dan and Cadril. I think there's that extra element. Dan's like the new young UK talent. Yeah. Cadril was in 4 Nations Cup in 2014. Let's not forget. We had Cadril, we had Vedius, these lovely UK players, and then there was me at home. Still not doing very well at that stage, but I was around, and it's inspiring to see new UK talent reach the LEC. And I think this is a great way to do it. And I'm not unhappy that Cadril is doing so well on broadcast. And I think this might not be the end of his player career, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. And he's doing fantastic there. I'm sad to see Special go. I'm not sure what's happened. Let's not forget there is a global pandemic going on, and some people dropping in and out because they might return to this in the future is almost to be expected. The level this has gone to. I'm always excited to see Patrick and Aphelios is back in the meta, so we best expect some Aphelios drafts if people start sinning with Blue One Kaiser again. You guys pull that out, and XL is gonna have like a field day. It's gonna be like Young Buck's gonna be there, like, "Hey guys, know what time it is?" It's like we practice this. Everyone's gonna be like, "No, not again! Put the ghoul boy away! I'm not Harry Potter." It's like, yeah, well, put the glasses and the wig on. Torre's inconsistency somewhat showed up last split. It was a red flag. Well, no, it was a yellow flag for going on that roster. It got better. It got worse. Maybe it was. It maybe wasn't. We'll see where it goes. I hope for better things.
Now, while Patrick may excel on an Aphelios, one team that definitely didn't excel last season was Origin. So much so that they've had an entire rebrand. Now Astralis, and you look at that roster for 2021, entirely different, just Nuke Duck that has stayed. Temporal, what do you think of this roster, change, this entire rebrand that seems to be focusing entirely around Nuke Duck?
Another year of the duck. Is it another year again? I'll be nice. I'll be nice. Alfari is a loss for this roster.
Huge.
I hope he has a great time in America. He's still not there yet, is he? I believe. In any
No,
case,
he's still playing in
I'm
the
sure.
UK at the moment.
Still playing in the UK. That's rough. White Knight is a long time solo queue player and is fantastically mechanically set up. Used to play a lot of mid lane. I think it was White Knight 108.
Yes,
was his old
I
solo
think,
queue
yeah.
ID. I believe it's changed now though. Berlin International were fine. I haven't watched too many of the games. So we'll see where he goes from here. I'm excited, and that's another mechanical top laner. But again, we're stuffed with mechanical top laners who we're probably going to see stuck on all. Let's be honest. Zanzara, I have a reasonable amount of information on, and did have the stint on Origin, which we all got to watch. I think there is a way in which he's quite well adapted to the new jungle and maybe better suited than the old one. There's more influence on fixed pathing, and changes to this have to be so valid. Otherwise, you're going to start griefing your team away, and you're going to start losing cohesion in the jungle. One of your lanes will fall behind. They won't feel it's their fault. Tension, stress, a lost objective, a disadvantage on the map. We have to see that avoided. And I think that was previously one of Zanzara's weaknesses, that you could just adapt horribly against this person and then start to twist things away. And I think that's less likely. And hopefully he'll be setting up Nuke Duck better with this. I don't even know if Nuke Duck is still there or it's a robot that is just meant to be the best LEC mid laner, but we'll see. We'll see this year. I'm happy to see Promiscu return to a starting roster, and we'll get to see what he's been up to. But gosh, like a huge rebuild, and then Nuke Duck the same. I think it's going to be different to when we've seen these players previously. How different? I'm really struggling to come to a conclusion on this.
I'll be honest, Temporal, for me, this is the 4 amateurs really coming into this. This is the 4 rookies coming in with the 1 veteran with Nuke Duck. Now, I mean, it's not, because Promise obviously has those 2 fake titles and he was the best substitute support
they are
player.
not fake.
I mean, they're not fake.
Come on.
But
on
even
that topic, he was there for the greatest recent European dynasty. You don't forget those things.
He got to be on stage for all of it as well. So I mean,
forget on stage, he was in scrims. He was in the practice room. He was in team discussions. All of those things incredibly valuable.
But it's good to see them back.
Yeskler is no rookie either. It's not even close.
No, but this is a weird roster, right? Because it's kind of the 4 rookies, 1 veteran, but it's not, because some of them haven't played for a bit. Like Promiscu hasn't played for a full split. Like this
is true.
That's a genuine thing.
I would be worried about the relative youth of their top lane, because White Knight has always managed to submerge himself back in solo queue when he's dropped out of competitive. I need to check how long his stint on Berlin was, maybe after the show, but can't quite remember. He's been in LEC before, I believe, but it was only a couple of games before he decided it wasn't for him. And I hope he can really stick it this time. If he's been working his way up through those ERLs, that is the way to prepare for this.
I think honestly, this roster has a lot to prove. All of these players have something to prove in the LEC. You got like Promiscu. He never actually did it himself. He was a part of the roster and was probably an element that actually got G2 all those wins and had that momentous rise to fame. But he didn't quite get the glory like everybody else did on that roster. So he's got something to prove, that he's not just kind of the support player that helped G2 figure it out. Nuke Duck has to kind of revive his career from the disappointment that Origin was. White Knight needs to prove that he's not just a solo queue god. Zanuck needs to prove that he's not just an amateur league. And everyone has a story to come into this. And if they perform and they find the pieces together, for me, this could be a great team. This is also a team that I look at and I go, well, on paper, they could be good, but I've seen how this has gone down in the past for them. I'm trying to temper my fate a little bit for this roster.
Okay. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts.
I'm going to move us on from here, but as you mentioned, a lot of stories to be told, and those stories will be told this weekend. And I want to take us on to this Friday's games. And Masked Swan and Temporal, I'd love to know your predictions for these games, because The split starting exactly the same as how it did last time, which was G2 against Mad Lions. Masked Swan, I'll start with you. What's your prediction?
It's got to be G2, baby. Like, it has to be G2 Milky every single time. If they don't hit the ground running, this is an exciting Mad Lions roster, as we've already mentioned. But if they don't hit the ground running here, I'm concerned.
90-10 G2. If Mad Lions do something here, it's because they have been in the hyperbolic time chamber and they don't care about showing off the results. They think it is now player oriented. I think this is very unlikely, and I think G2 is likely to take this one.
Okay.
Astralis versus SK.
Yeah. What do we think then? The Origin rebrand taking on SK. Can Astralis make it work?
I will say no. Actually, SK are gonna make this work. I really, honestly, like, I'm just hyped to see Treats again. I might have my bias T there, but and these guys might know it. But I mean, I like Treats, and I think this is actually an SK roster that could work out. And if it doesn't, we're gonna know the parts which aren't gonna work very early on. I think if we see cracks from SK, it'll be early on. Astralis, I just can't rate at the moment. There's so much going on with them. I don't know about you, Temporal.
How dare you be excited about a fantastic support player returning to the LEC? That is just such a nice way to be. I am going to give this one to Astralis. I think they will hit the ground running faster in a season where, while we have a defined meta and we've been able to watch the LEC, we've been watching LCK, LPL. These teams must have been watching. They've been watching the RLs, especially Prime League. I think they'll hit the ground running faster. They will adapt. They will rather adopt this template quicker than SK. I think SK will do better in the long run and will finish above them. I think in this week one head-to-head Astralis, if they are going to pick up wins, going to be here.
Okay, and then we go to Rogue versus XL, and we've got those Aga-Roga players on both sides of the lineup. So, Temporal, I'll go to you first. Rogue or XL?
Rogue. Sorry, XL. I love you. I love your team. I need to watch your documentary. They're so fantastic at getting you invested. You don't even have to be a fan of UK League of Legends, which is why it's great, because that's a different conversation. But XL, I'm really excited, and I don't think this is the 90-10 I said to G2. I don't think it's sort of a 65-35. That was my feeling on the Astralis. I think this is more a 60-40. Both of these teams have a lot to show for. I'm more decided on the Rogue side of things.
Masked Swan?
Rogue every day till Sunday. That's it. Easy. I think they upgraded overall.
Right. And then Vitality against Schalke. Do you think Schalke will come back with the same momentum that they left off with, Masked Swan?
Yes, 100%. I honestly do believe in this Schalke lineup a little bit more than I feel like I should, but hey, God Gilius giveth, and God Gilius will take away if it happens like that. Broken Blade is by his side, and I believe that they can do it. Yeah.
And Temporal? I think that's... Oh, this one's nearly a 50-50 in my brain, and it's not because I feel the teams are close together. I feel it's because there is an incredible lack of inspiration. We're going to see if Gilius has adapted to the new season or whether he's just decided to stay on the team and just try his best.
God Gilius,
a horrible thing to say. Yeah. Give us and take us away. High risk, high reward.
Oh yeah.
The start of a season, that's not always the best camp to be in. But you can't adapt to it off the bat. So we're in this gray zone where have they scouted something from solo queue and ripped something from a replay server, and where they now understand the niche Gilius is trying to play. Is Gilius even trying to play a niche? Is he just straight up playing jungle the vanilla way? Who knows?
All right.
And I should know. I should have looked this up, but I haven't quite got the time and resources to stalk Gilius.
So, Temporal, did you go with Schalke or Vitality?
Schalke for 55 and 45. This is a close one.
Right.
Now, and I think there is a reason this is the penultimate game of the day.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to say, if you two were both so one-sided for Rogue versus XL, surely you both have to be on one side of the camp for Misfits versus Fnatic.
Yeah, the Fnatic camp every day.
Temporal?
See, I am actually pretty split on this.
No.
Kobe is off meta, but has had time to prepare. Now, has he prepared? I haven't found out. I think his solo queue account looks promising. In a competitive meta where Aphelios likes to beat up on Kaiser, Kaiser likes to beat up on everyone, including Samira, Jin likes to beat up on Samira, Misfortune is pretty strong, but then falls off like a Grand Canyon. We have to set these dynamics in bot lane. Previously, Cobby, if he can bully the other AD carry, has a great time. Play through lane and then play the rest of the game. That's all he needs to do. And he is fantastic at that. And Upset really doesn't like going behind in lane, but also plays Kaiser really well, which will always go behind in lane. We have this weird dynamic where we're getting vacuumed into the bottom of the map. Whippo can't play anything at the moment. They'll take over in the 1v1. So you can't even exploit any weaknesses on the top side of the map. Mid's going to be a real point of tension, because if you lose there, it doesn't even matter what happens in the sides. They're going to run through your jungle so quickly on the current patch. I think we're going to see that addressed in notes tomorrow. I think we're going to see a twist in the bottom lane. I don't think AD carry items, but I think pretty close. And it's not going to be long before support items start to go as well. With all of that considering, we're going to condense that back down into this match. It is uncertain which way the teams are going to start the season, because you've got all of these conditions I spoke about. Play your best
Temporal.
card.
No,
yeah,
you can't say that.
He's sitting on the fence all the time.
No, I am the fence, and the fence moves through the ground very slowly. Go on.
So where are you going? Where are you going?
60-40 Fnatic.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, 64. The precision
I hate it.
from Temporal. This precision.
You have to have this confidence to back up the big matches. And in Europe, the small ones are decided by teams deciding, hey, do we decide to play something we might not want to show?
Do you just call Fnatic a small match?
No. So small matches are not between top 3 teams. If G2 play Astralis, it is not a big match.
Okay.
And it's small in space of the season. I don't want to say they don't matter, but they are single incidents. I believe it was Misfits Fnatic. They showed off their Zoe counter in the Braum Cho'Gath, and that was almost a limit test on how Fnatic behave in a macro position last year, and it informed so many people on what to do against them. It's a risk.
Right. On that note, we won't look at the Saturday and Sunday games as we are running out of time. Masked Swan and Temporal, especially Temporal, thank you so much for joining us as a guest on the show. It has been a pleasure to have you. But before we sign things off, Masked Swan went on to the Rift. It's a dangerous place out there, but Masked Swan braved the weathers of the jungle, or more specifically, the lane, to show you guys a thing or two about wave management.
Hello everybody, welcome to Learning with Masked Swan. Today we're going to be looking at Wave Control 101. Before we actually start talking about wave control, let's start first talking about minion types. There are 3 different types of minions: melee, caster, and siege or cannon minions. Melee minions are tanky, caster minions do more damage, and cannons do a bit of both. At the start of the game, a cannon minion will spawn once every 3rd wave. At the 50-minute mark, it's every other one, and at 25 minutes, it's every single wave. Be careful with early game trades, however, because caster minions will do a lot more damage early on, and this will come to make a lot more sense when we start talking about the types of wave control. To kill a minion under the turret, it will take 7 turret shots and 1 auto attack to kill a siege minion. It will take 2 turret shots and 1 auto attack to kill a melee, and 1 turret shot and 2 autos to kill a caster. Minions have a very deep rabbit hole on how they work. There's even things like minion buffs if you go later into a game, and all kinds of things can affect them. If you're interested in hearing about that, let us know on social media. Anyway, let's start talking about the types of wave management that there are in the game. There are 3 types, and they are freezing, slow pushing, and fast pushing. There is technically a 4th type, which is called neutral, but that's when no one's around and the wave gets left for a while. We don't need to worry about that. You'll first find yourself doing one of either slow pushing and fast pushing in almost every single game, and freezing is slightly more situation and will depend a lot more on your elo. However, if you're in that low elo, learning to freeze can definitely be a quick and effective way to slowly start climbing and improving your overall ability in the game. Anyway, let's talk about fast pushing first, as it's one of the easiest types of wave management control in the game. Your goal here is to kill the enemy minions as fast as possible, get your minions to crash into the enemy's turret, and that's the whole job of it. Now, there are some pros and cons to doing a fast push. Some of the pros could be, well, you want to push the wave in to deny or roam. You want to deny CS from a laner that isn't actually in their lane at the time, to maybe dive the opponent either on your own or maybe with a jungler or assistance from another lane. You can also use it to get an early all-in, to break a freeze, to get lane priority ahead of a neutral objective such as Dragon or Rift Herald. However, you do need to be aware there are some negative effects of doing this. Obviously, if you push up pretty deep, you can be vulnerable to ganks, especially if you're using a lot of your abilities. And sometimes you will have to use your gap closer if you want to get the fast push in. Another one, if you don't do the crash fully correctly, your opponent could set up a freeze, which could be difficult to break unless you get assistance from your jungler or another lane. Again, pros and cons, and it's important that you know when and where to do this. So now you have the basic idea of what a fast push is, but I've kept mentioning this freezing concept. What is freezing? Well, freezing is very simply where you prevent the lane from moving in either direction, typically into your turret, but you'll understand why I'm going to say a few other ways around it. Anyway, let's first explain how a freeze actually works, or how do you actually set up a freeze. First, the enemy wave must be pushing into you, or realistically, there must be a minion advantage on your opponent's side. Step 2, your minions must die, and you need to prevent the enemy minions from crashing into your tower, or at least turret range. Step 3, make sure the enemy always has a minion number advantage. This allows you to keep the freeze going for a longer amount of time. Step 4, you will need to manage where in your lane you want the freeze to happen. If you do it a bit too close into the middle, you could be more vulnerable to ganks. However, it's a lot more easier to set it up there. However, if you set up a freeze right outside your enemy's turret, or rather they've set up a freeze probably on you, you're going to be susceptible to ganks. And step number 5 is the closer to the center of the lane, the easier it is for you to set up the freeze to then slowly have it bring into your turret range so you can protect yourself. Now, there's a few reasons you might want to do this. Firstly, you might be stronger and you want to prevent your opponent from actually coming up and CSing effectively. You want to prevent them from roaming and really prevent them from even maybe getting a level experience or anything. You could also think it might be dangerous for you. You're freezing it outside of your turret, you're making sure it's difficult for the enemy jungler to gank you, and you're able to farm up effectively in maybe a bad matchup. Your jungle path could also be important. Remember, if you know your jungler is going to be coming up to at the 3 to 4 minute mark, if you're able to set up for a freeze, it's going to be way easier for you to not only reach your opponent when the jungler comes in, but it's also going to be easier for your jungler to actually gank for you. However, there are several problems with freezing. Sometimes it can be very difficult to break your own freeze once you've got it set up, especially in lower elo where typically people will keep fighting you and the minion advantage and wave management might not be there. You might set up a freeze and then suddenly realize you've locked yourself into a game. While it's very rare, it's more susceptible in lower elo. Another problem is if your opponent leaves a lot of vision around, be aware to break the freeze and fast push. If you don't know when to break your own freeze and to fast push into your opponent, you could easily fall very far behind and your opponent could roam, assist them in a group objective, and you might be sitting there still with your freeze, looking very happy with yourself, but how much is it actually assisting your team? When freezing, remember to look at what the objectives are, what's around the map, and how you can continue to help your team. Freezing shouldn't be for a long-term plan, it should be just for the short term while you're looking for the next thing to do around the map. Slow pushing is actually very similar to freezing, however, it's a lot further away from actually a fast push. Partly due to this is the setup capacity. For a slow push, you actually need to do a very similar thing to freezing, just slightly in reverse. What you plan to do is do a reverse freeze. You want to always have about one caster minion over your opponent. Very, very minorly getting a little bit of an advantage over a large wave over time, hopefully over 2 to 3 waves, and then you crash one large wave into your enemy turret. Why would you do this though? Minion waves have an advantage, meaning it's easier for you to trade. Also, creep aggro will help. I mentioned this earlier with the creep trades and potentially getting a lot of damage from caster minions. pressure due to having just a larger wave. Larger wave sounds like an opportunity for you to roam and ward, solo kills and dive with jungle, and you don't deny as much, but you won't take as much damage when you're slow pushing compared to potentially when you're freezing. You will take damage from having to walk up and tank a few of the minions, or with a fast push, you don't leave yourself as susceptible to a gank because, well, it's slowly happening. You're going to be aware of where your opponent's jungler is. Slow pushes also happen a lot more commonly throughout the mid to late game part of a game, mainly because you can just let the waves push themselves once you build a small advantage, and eventually you can build a few waves up, crash it into a turret, and this is what all the analysts talk about with split pushing opportunities. If you can build up a wave, you can do this. Everybody, each lane is unique, and all the information I'm giving you on fast pushing, slow pushing, and freezing is somewhat dependent to that. Top lane is still the meme island it's always been, and meaning you do have a long lane between two champions and melee champions, so it's a lot easier for that. Mid lane has a lot more range carries and fast wave clear. Setting up a freeze probably won't last very long in that lane, and also mid lane's the shortest lane. It's not going to be very hard for people to roam and get small wards or vision advantages, even in moments of, well, lull. And the bot lane, well, there's two players there, and while their supports can vary in their ability to wave clear, it's going to be different because, well, there's just more people down in that lane. So take everything I've gone, go out and seek more knowledge, and you'll improve your wave clearing thing. But before I go, here's a few extra tips to help you improve your game almost immediately. Okay, everybody, my first tip for you is going to be TP wave push. Now, the idea of this is actually to help set up a freeze. If you're coming back to lane, try and teleport to either a siege or a caster minion. Casters do more damage, remember, and siege minions do a bit of both. What this allows you to do is your opponent's wave will end up actually causing a crash into you, and this will actually set up a freeze for your lane. Having a freeze typically gives you an advantage and allows you to have far more control over it. Especially doing something like this, you could call for a jungle gank or a gank from mid or bot, depending on who's doing this, and allow you to get a lot more control. Think about this next time you use that TP. The next tip is going to be learn to cheater recall. Now, typically you can only do this in the first few waves of the game, and it's going to be difficult after that. However, learning how to cheater recall is going to be super important to your development. You're going to want to slow push wave 1 and wave 2, crash in aggressively wave number 3, immediately recall. Commonly, if you CS'd effectively, you'll have over 450 gold, meaning when you go back to base, you can buy a starting item, a pot, or if you're really good, a full potion. Go back and then you'll be great as anything. My third tip is something that goes without saying, however, a lot of players do forget about this sometimes. Waves are mirrored for a reason, and what you can use is that information. If you know that your wave has only just spawned, that's the same for the opponents. If the waves are pretty empty at this point, you could easily get back a recall and come back to lane and not miss out on too much. Also, this is important for when you're a jungler, and if you're planning to come in for a gank, maybe just have a look at where your own team's waves are coming in, and you'll be able to know where your opponents are. It's a small thing, but knowing that can help a lot more. And lastly, but certainly not least, most support players will know this. However, it will definitely help everybody on the map knowing about this, and you can even use this in the jungle. Use minions as sweepers. And what do I mean by this? Well, you want to pull a creep from the lane, pull them with aggression into a brush. Now, if that minion keeps following you into the brush, that's a warded lane. However, if the minion immediately de-aggroes you, you'll be good to go. And honestly, that's everything. Use a minion as a sweeper, super easy thing to use, and you'll quickly improve your vision score purely just through that. As well as a jungler, you might be able to get a few more ganks in if your team does this. But with everything, that's Wave Control Management 101 with Masked Swan, and let's go back to Milky.
Thank you very much, Masked Swan, for a very informative video on wave management. Now, while your wave management tips will be sticking in everyone's head, my hair gel is no longer sticking to my hair. And that means that it is a time to end the show. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And until then, stay tilt-proof on the Rift, and goodbye.